Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Future of Money. It's an honor and a joy to be with you all as we're exploring into the consciousness of money and the capacities needed for navigating the emerging economy. My name is Forrest Wilson. I'm part of the convening team along with Sushant, Sarah, Tim, and Jeff. We'll be welcoming them on stage here, if you will, in the spotlight in just a few minutes. But yeah, before I just wanted to welcome everyone here. Excited to be with you all, excited to be exploring this together. And I'm going to turn it over to Sarah here in just a minute to share a video. But before that, I just want to invite us all to land. I know there's people still coming into the room. Perhaps we can just take a breath together collectively. I'm noticing I've got a lot of nervous, bubbly, excited energy right now. And just really thrilled to be here and wandering into the consciousness of money and emerging economies together and what money's got to say about it. So yeah, turn it over to you, Sarah, to welcome everyone in with a video for a couple of minutes.
Let's take a look into the year 2030. A time when we can see the results of so many people making positive change. Let's feel right now what it's like to know peace on our planet. Let's see what it looks like when Earth is free to restore her natural beauty. Let's listen to the sounds of people who are living in harmony with each other and with nature. Let's sense the deep love for life that has created this change. The people who have joined together to do good for the world. The individuals who had the courage and determination to do what they knew was right. The organizations that change direction for the sake of our mutual well-being. The leaders who encouraged us to trust ourselves and our inner knowing. The spirits who whispered in our hearts, showing us the way when we couldn't see it clearly. These are the expressions of love that unite us and give us power to move forward, creating the world we long to live in. Let's bring that world into the present moment and live it today and tomorrow and the next day and every day on the path to 2030 and beyond.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a beautiful video. I'm just bringing everybody else on the stage. Wonderful. So we're here. Welcome, Sarah. Welcome, Jeff. Welcome, Sushant. Welcome, Tim. Thank you, Sarah, for such a beautiful video and warm introduction, and welcome into our gathering. And thank you all for being here, everyone on the call. We welcome you on video if you feel called. We'd love to see your face. And I'd just love to introduce everybody to our panel for this evening. Sarah, Jeff, Sushant, Tim, maybe y'all can share a little bit about you, what's calling you into this space tonight, and your happiest dream for the gathering.
Shall I start? Well, you called me into the space, actually, Forrest. You got in touch with me and you said, I'm really interested in this whole thing about money and how we can change our relationship with money. And I have this young audience. And we started talking. My work has been around money for some time now, since I had this rather strange experience of finding myself writing messages from money that were extraordinarily beautiful messages, and helped to change my understanding of what money is and how we can relate to it in a way that actually could enable us to create that world that was being indicated in the video, a world where we can thrive and that does work for all of us, not just a few. And so that's what I do. That's what all of my work is about. And so thank you, Forrest, for sending me emails and saying, hey, can we talk? And this is the first step of what's emerged from that.
Thanks, Sarah.
I can go next. So why am I here? Well, Forrest, you invited me as well. And so it's a pleasure to connect with everybody here. I've been on this path of really looking at what is the future of finance look like. As a venture capitalist, I've come across a lot of challenges in the marketplace. And so I've been on this path to discover what is the post-capitalism finance look like. Not just as an awareness or new kind of understanding, but what kind of systems can we build that creates this post-capitalistic society. So I've been on it for quite some time, and glad to see so many different innovations happening in the space. And so I'm fully plugged into those. And so happy to talk a little bit more about that, and really a blessing to connect with everybody here.
Thanks, Sushant. Tim, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Forrest. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Well, I'm delighted to be here. Sarah and I have been for 5 years now building a business that's called Love To, and it's quite a game-changing business in a lot of ways. We're actually producing a financial product, and that financial product is something that gets sold on a stock exchange just like a normal share. But what's behind it is the good that people have done by doing what they really love to do. So people can now be rewarded for doing good things for themselves, for the environment, for their community. And we can measure those, we can value them, and we can reward them, and then they can continue to do it. So, it doesn't need to rely on volunteering anymore. It doesn't need to rely on philanthropy anymore. It brings capital markets to work for the people. And we're doing that through mutual structures. So I think we're one of those examples of maybe something that's emerging quite quickly now. We're quite close to doing our first listings, and times are getting interesting, but it's certainly a game changer. So I'm delighted to be here and just explore a little bit of what you're all thinking about. And some of you have supported us on the way. So hello to all of you that I know. And here we are. Looking forward to talking to you.
Thanks, Tim. We're excited to hear more. Over to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Forrest. Well, there is a theme here. I'm here in significant measure because of the beautiful invitation from you, Forrest, and also because of the call to a more profound understanding and relationship with what money is. And I've had the joy of deepening into this new way of being and being with money through working with Sarah and Tim and exploring the consciousness of money for many, 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 many days in retreat, and sharing that back into the world as we can, which I look forward to doing today. And what comes to me as my highest dream for our time together is that the love that we are becomes the way that we are with one another, including in our financial interactions.
Thanks, Jeff. I see some people in the audience clapping, and I'm really touched by your share. Okay, hello everyone. My name's Forrest. I'm here because I invited a bunch of amazing people to come and share their wisdom and their gifts and the amazing things that that we're up to in the world. It feels a potent time right now in what's unfolding on our planet to deepen into our relationship with money and an exploration with the relationship of money, and really what's emerging. What are the new possibilities in relationships, including our relationship with money, and what new marketplaces, what new economies are emerging out of the actions and interactions of individuals who are wandering into playing life differently, from a different center of gravity, from a different meaning-making system. And I know I'm looking at a room of some familiar faces and some new faces, but I recognize many like soulpreneurs and heart-sourced visionaries and cultural catalysts and change makers, healers, practitioners, parents, children. And you know, every human being is making up this new emerging economy of love. Yeah, I'm just honored to be in space with such an amazing group of people, all 70 of you. Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And my happiest dream, I've just finished reading Sarah's book, and my biggest takeaway is money is like my best friend now. So I look into right now on my screen, I see 5 faces. And if I look into the little corners, I see 2 black boxes. And to me, that's where money's sitting up here, hanging out with us and wanting to share its wisdom and its invitations for us and its guidance for our continued evolution and awakening, and further illuminating us as the love we all are, to be the love we all are, as Jeff said. So welcome. It's good to be with you. We're going to invite you all into breakout rooms for a few minutes to have a few minutes to get present, share anything that's on your heart, anything that's alive with you, and why you're here with each other. So if anyone else would like to share anything while I
yes, I would love to say one thing while you're setting up the breakout rooms. A few weeks ago, Jeff and I were in a meeting that was also called the Future of Money. There were about 8 or 10 of us there. And it felt like a landmark moment where each person who was in the room kind of declared why they saw that money and our relationship with money is so central to our collective future. It was an extraordinary meeting because normally meetings are about, you know, who are we? What can we do together? What do we need to go away and implement? And it felt different because it felt like being there together in that space and in that field was making the change in and of itself. And I feel that this meeting is the same, that by us coming together around this topic with each of our own motivations and interests and curiosity and aliveness around it, that in itself is an act of change and of contribution. And so we described it, I saw Forrest described it as a landmark meeting. And that, I think that word is really important, the presence of us being here together around such an important topic as the future of money and how we interact with it and operate with it and express it through our businesses and through our transactions in the future is very significant by our being here.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll just add a little thing. I love the fact that we are using the word love and finance and money together. And that's a new awareness, that's a new consciousness. And so when we were having this conversation a few weeks ago, one of the things that really emerged was the lover archetype. You know, those of us who, you know, who've been on this path of self-transformation and transformation of society for a long time know that there's all these different archetypes at play, you know, and it's very amazing to see the lover archetype come online in the world of finance and money. You know, so an ongoing inquiry and exploration for me is how does a lover, a mature lover, love money? And how does a mature lover build consciousness and capacities in the world? And so I think there's a lot to unpack in how we approach our own awareness of the lover archetype in relationship to money. And I think I can speak a little bit more to that. There's a lot to unpack there.
Beautiful. Thanks,
Well,
Sarah.
that will make an interesting breakout group.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so everyone, what's alive in you now? Is there anything on your heart that you'd like to share to be more fully here? And yeah, what's brought you into this space? Those are the questions we're sending you into the breakout room with. So enjoy. Okay, welcome back, or welcoming back. We're still coming back. Cool. Welcome back to those of us who are back. Everybody have fun in the breakout room? Anyone besides me? Yeah, cool, awesome. All right. I don't know about you all, but breakout rooms never last long enough for me. I just could hang out in there and be in the flow with the breakout room forever, probably.
I think everyone should be back now.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So next we're coming to, let's find Sushant. So Sushant, welcome. We're welcoming everybody back from the breakout rooms. You are the first up on the panel of featured speakers now. So everyone, I want to introduce you to Sushant for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of meeting him yet. Sushant is pioneering new possibilities, bridging the worlds of venture capital and business with consciousness and spirituality in working with what he says is transforming finance and financing transformation, illuminating the need for both the consciousness shift and the capacities needed in the evolutionary unfolding that's happening right now. So Sushant, welcome. It's good to be with you. It's good to have you here. Can you say more about what it means for you when you say transforming finance and financing transformation and what you're seeing?
Thank you, Forrest. That's really great. And I'm so glad to see everybody here. It was a wonderful breakout room experience as well. I think the obvious question there is, what is transformation? You know, what do we mean by transformation, right? I think that's something that we really need to dig into. And I think transformation can mean so many different things. And, you know, transformation can mean waking up to a new awareness, like an expansive identity. And that can happen through meditation practices, you know, different kind of spiritual practices. But it can also mean, transformation can also mean growing up to our mature identity and integrated worldview, right? Transformation can also mean, you know, doing shadow work, cleaning up our blind spots, reintegrating parts of ourselves that is not owned. It can also mean showing up. Transformation can also mean showing up in the world in an embodied way. So all of that are different aspects of transformation. So now what happens when we start to transform, quote unquote transform, is that we get to see the world in a different way. And I love that Sarah started with the video with the waves in it. And it gave me this really insight into how the different worldviews, different perspective in the world are like different waves, right? So once we start to embody this new and mature type of awareness and perspective, then we start to see how all the different worldviews in the world are just like different waves. Modernity, for example, is a wave. Post-modernity is a wave, right? All of these are different waves. And so we get to really see it. But the interesting thing about that is that we get to see it. Seeing the waves doesn't necessarily mean being able to swim in those waves. So we need to build new capacities to swim those waves. This is where the money conversation becomes so fascinating, is because many of us are starting to embody new type of relationship with money. And, I admire Sarah's work a lot because it's really telling us how to reinvent our relationship with money. And now, many of us have the responsibility to also build new capacities around money. So new capacities means that learning about finance, how it works, how the world works right now, and being able to transform it in a very strategic way, right? And so that's very exciting space, and many of us are involved in it. I'm super excited about the Love To project. I have a couple of my projects that I'm launching myself, so would love to talk more about it. And that's really, really great. And one last thing I'll say is that I'd love to unpack this, but the really amazing thing about the transformative practices with the psycho-spiritual practices is that we start to basically understand that once we reach a certain level of transformation, then it's no longer only about growing up or waking up, it's also about growing down and waking down, right? It's about embodying some of the earlier sort of stages of our experiences, right? So what I've really come to understand is that for money, for finance to wake up, for money and finance to grow up, we need to basically grow down and wake down. For finance to have a new type of consciousness, we need to have new kind of capacities. And that's a really interesting place to be. It's both opportunity and responsibility coming together.
So Sushant, I'm just in fleshing this out a little bit more. I'm curious, as you're speaking about these waves, can you tell us about the wave or waves that you're seeing that are happening right now and the capacities that are needed to navigate the wave or waves that are happening now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So zero in on the world of finance a little bit. Obviously, we know the world of capitalism. We know the world of industrial revolution. It really goes back into the Western Enlightenment, right? The Western Enlightenment, so to speak, which gave rise to modernity. And so modernity has basically gone through many phases, and then it gave rise in the 60s to the civil rights movements and post-modernity and a new way of being. So the waves that I'm talking about is these are different perspectives that people hold in the world. There are different ways of being in the world. The reason our politics is so divided right now is because we just don't recognize the other side of the story. We just don't see that people embody very different worldviews. I've lived in Alabama, I've lived in New York, I've lived in West Virginia, I've lived in California, Bay Area, California. Those are very different worlds. Those are very different worlds. It's very different embodiment. And the kind of land that we are connected with, the kind of society that we're connected with, it gives rise to a very different kind of embodiment, different kind of awareness. And I think it's really important to recognize that there are different worlds. We literally are living in different worlds. And the capacity, the new kind of capacity that I'm talking about is being able to move from one world to another without conflict. I'm an immigrant myself. I spent my childhood in Nepal and India, and have been living in the United States for a very long time now. So, in my own immigrant experience, I'm not somebody from Nepal coming into America. I'm a Nepali American. I had to integrate those two identities, two worlds together, right? And so that gives rise to a new type of awareness. And I think new type of consciousness in the world, and that consciousness gives rise to new way of being in the world. Right?
Yeah, beautifully said, beautifully said. And I also want to get curious about this new consciousness and new way of being, and even on a more practical level, what are the capacities and competencies and just emergences, happenings that you're witnessing that are unfolding right now in the new way of being?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate to be part of the whole transformative movement for 15, 20 years now. I've been part of the whole Bay Area movement of transformative education, integral theory, metamodernism, all of these different ways of being. And so what it comes down to is it's really a capacity to love is what it really comes down to. expansion of our identities is that can we hold, Obama and Rush Limbaugh in our consciousness, right? Is a new kind of capacity. Can we hold all varying, like drastically different kind of perspective into our awareness? Doesn't mean that we have to basically abide by it. It doesn't mean we have to subscribe to it. But can we see a new way of being, right? I forgot who said it, but it was a really beautiful description of what does it mean to be a cosmopolitan, right? Cosmopolitan basically means that when you suffer, I suffer. Right? Can we really have that kind of expansion of our care and concern to include more and more, not just include people we agree with, but can we include people in our circle of care that we don't agree with, that quote unquote not spiritual, right? One of the things that happens, I'm sure all of us have experienced this, is as soon as we come down our mountaintop, like mountaintop meaning our spiritual high, right, through either spiritual retreats or whatever it might be, your tool, we immediately come down to the marketplace and we run against other people in light and ego, right? So you have to navigate that space. So how can we navigate that, right? And there's a new capacity there where we find awareness and bliss in everything, not just on the mountaintop, right? So the new capacity is bringing together the mountaintop and the marketplace together.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of bringing the mountaintop and the marketplace together, what are the implications this has on how you look at a person, a venture, a business, an industry as a venture capitalist? I mean, I in a former life, I worked in finance, and we did investment a certain way in terms of valuing projects and everything. But it seems to me there might be some new kinds of metrics emerging, or some new quantitative, qualitative things that you're exploring in terms of like how you're making meaning of what deals to pursue. So what's coming online for you in that?
This is really cool. This is actually the practice. This is actually the capacity, building capacity and creating new systems. So how does that matter is basically it starts to create, first what happens when you work with this kind of consciousness is that the culture of the company starts to shift radically, especially if you are in the leadership position, right? And I've experienced this in my company a lot. The kind of conversation that we can have shifts drastically. So for example, each of our business meeting, we start with a short meditation, right? It's a small shift. Nevertheless, the kind of container that we are weaving because of that is very different than what we have been able to do for many, many years. So it invites not just part of a person, but whole of the person to come to the room. We always check in, for example, how are you arriving to this call or this meeting, right? Everybody has something going on in their lives, personally and relationship-wise and all that. So being able to bring that in itself is hugely transformative. I remember, I think it was Krishnamurti who talked about, listening is God, right? The practice of listening itself is so sacred that it transforms. So I think we need to practice more and more into our, in our businesses and business culture. And that's something that we've been doing. So that's just a very top layer of it. Now, once we start to go deeper, how do we look at deals? How do we look at finances? Is that, it's a very different conversation when I meet up with startup founders, when I interview them for potential financial investments, advisory services, syndicates, and all of that, is that it's a very different conversation. And it's almost like we are looking at each other through our truly who we are. And then business is the startup, and the role of VC is just temporary, that we have to basically navigate, right? So we can really connect at a deep human and divine level, right? That experience is amazing to have. And the kind of businesses that gets built, the kind of people that gets hired because of that is quite different. And we have actually, I've developed what I call, consciousness hiring metrics, which basically looks at how do we hire people, how do we build team based on a certain metrics. that allows for those kind of new type of awareness to flourish in the company, right? Especially, this is very important, especially when you're starting a company and trying to find your core team. Mm-hmm. And also changes the conversation about how we talk to other venture capital world, because when we invest, it's not just one venture capital going in, there are several. And so it creates a different kind of conversation and different type of awareness altogether. So for example, I do the diligence on the deals in the companies, and I always include the leadership of the team. And the word leadership is really a gateway to understand new consciousness and new awareness. And so how we measure the leadership, quote unquote measure, or understand the leadership of a company can transform quite a bit. And I have a lot to say about that. There's a whole product I'm developing based on that. So.
Thanks, Sushant. I could keep asking questions, and I'm starting to notice a sense of a transition in me. So
thank you.
Before I go to Sarah, I'd love to ask, first of all, thank you for your wisdom and everything you shared. Is there anything else that you'd like to share into the space before we transition to Sarah?
Just that I think, which is transitioning to Sarah's work, is the relationship with money and finance. I think we have some good news. I think we're a lot to look forward to, and I'm so excited that many of us are engaged in that practice now. So thank you, everyone, for that.
Yeah, thanks, Sushant. Okay, here comes Sarah. And I'm seeing some encouraging messages in the chat. So, hi, Sarah, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I know you have another video to show us. Maybe we'll start with that. Does that feel good, or would you like to share something?
I actually feel there are a few things that would be valuable to say before watching the video, if that's okay.
Perfect, please.
First of all, Forrest, thank you for putting us in breakout groups. That was really valuable for me. It helped me to see something that I hadn't named before. We speak a lot about the feminine energy and the feminine energy rising, and a lot of people associate my work around money with feminine energy because it has a softness and it brings love into the money space. But even just in the short time since the breakout group, I've been reflecting as I was listening to Sushant, what is this quality that we can call feminine energy? It kind of connects also with the more spiritual and the consciousness energy at times. What is this energy, and how does it change not only our relationship with money, but as a consequence, the way we do business and the way that we act in the world? And I feel that it's so easy for us to look at these kinds of questions and then go and put the old kind of structure on top of it. So we say, this is the formula. This is what we need to do. This is how we do it going forward. And we're suddenly back in an old, over-structured environment. Now, clearly, there's nothing wrong with structure. Business in itself exists within a structure, and we're playing with structure all the time, as does money. It's the over-structuring. And what I really want to say is that the minute we start to talk about it, even as I'm speaking about it, I can feel how we start to go into our heads, how we go into formulae and blueprints and frameworks. And what I'm seeing more than anything else, even in business and even in all the kind of structured activities that we engage with and make our economy and our society work, the presence of us, our aliveness, our kind of really being on the edge here, our willingness to admit that we don't have the answers, even however conscious we are, however good at business we are, however conscious we are, wherever we sit on that, we're in a place where we don't have the answers. And all of us together are kind of stepping forward, sometimes holding hands, sometimes letting go of each other's hands, doing the things that we do as human beings. So that this requires us to bring all of our being into what we're doing. And the other thing that really struck me as I was listening to Sushant, and he said he's been in the world of consciousness and all of that for 20 years. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, it's 33 years since I started training with my first Chinese master, and started to get into that world. And very often there's this feeling like, well, it took me 33 years to get to where I am now. I've learned so much from that. And like, what about all the people who are just starting now? But there's it feels to me like there's a way in which we're also all in the same place at the moment. And it doesn't really matter whether you've done 33 years, there's value to that. I've learned a tremendous amount that I couldn't have learned in 10 years. It doesn't really matter if you've been around this and been thinking about it for 2 months, you're right at the beginning or anywhere in between. There's a way that we all connect together in this moment, and we all walk forward together. And that comes through our collective, letting go of our collective arrogance and pride and thinking that we know the way forward, but holding a direction, like holding in our hearts and our souls a direction towards what we know is right and good and true, and just resonates for us as human beings, just people who live on a planet having this kind of really rather weird experience that we're having that we don't understand very well, but we just have this kind of, in a sense, like that made you smile, and that kind of feels good when you smile. And that when we can laugh and have some fun, and when we generally feeling we're doing good things, and we're creating a world that feels better for everybody. There are simple things that, if we're really honest, most of us resonate with. Really honest, if we're in our heart and we allow our soul to speak through us, not only our head, it's fairly easy for us to unite. So I feel that is very important in the context of where we are today, that we can bring many different people together into business or into the different things that we're doing. And it's almost like we need to make it work. We need to make our relationship with money work, because it forms the heart of our economy. I don't think we have any choice about it. I think if we don't do that, we will make a new economy that also doesn't work well. So having said that, I would really like to play the video. The video is the very first message that I received from money. So for those of you who don't know my story at all, I know there are many people here who are familiar with it. I was sitting on my bed in a flat in London. It's an apartment in American, which I couldn't afford to pay for because my business had just failed. And I didn't have anything to do because I was used to working 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, typical business kind of thing, especially when the business is failing. So I had nothing to do. All we ever could talk about is what can we do next, but we didn't even have like £10 to rub together to do anything. So we were just full of ideas, full of headspace. And I found myself writing this message from money. And that was the beginning of my starting to question everything that I knew about money. And ultimately, from my side, in meeting Tim, who will speak a bit later, forming Love To, and all the other work that I do in educating people around money. So I'd like to play you this video, which is simply the first message that I ever wrote. I wrote well over 60, I've written many messages since then, but about 69 of them are published in my book, Love Money, Money Loves You. And I will find now for you the one that started all of it. So just give me a moment. I lined all my videos up, but actually I forgot that Zoom doesn't quite work that way. All right, so the thing you need to imagine is that this is money speaking. It's not me, and it is speaking to you. This is what money would like to say to you. I would like to tell you to love me. Smile at me. Collect me. Enjoy me. Feel my power. Spend me. Invest me. Give me. Pay with me. Take me. I am an energy. I'm very powerful and beautiful. I'm an incredible web of connections. I am light. You're too afraid of me, as you are of many things. You can open up and embrace me fully into your life. It's not too late. You can start now. Just open yourself and say yes. Be brave. Love me. Love yourself so you can accept my power, my glory, my light, my beauty. I'm not the devil. I never have been. I'm a glorious being of light. I connect human beings with each other. I'm so flexible. You can use me to channel your creativity. Just go ahead. I'm waiting for you. You must open your heart. You're too rigid, too afraid, and there's nothing to be afraid of. You will win not only me, but life also. I'm always here to help you. Just accept me, and I'll come to you very quickly. You've chosen to have more. There's a lot of me waiting for you. Don't wait. Just take me. I will love you. In a way, that is a demonstration. It's so personal, and yet if you apply the message of that in business, if we could apply that kind of message in the way that we invest in the citizens of a country, in the way that we interact with each other, you can feel it's like the whole system works. It has such coherence in the heart of it. It doesn't just make a little bit work, or that little bit, or my little bit. It actually makes the whole thing work. It's the energy that it's the same energy that sits in the heart of our life, which is love. I also, Lena, I can listen to it. I probably have listened to it 1,000 times. I was as touched by it this time as I was the first time that when I first wrote it and I read back what I'd written, because it was just so surprising. And I feel if we can keep this quality of tenderness and curiosity and appreciation of the extraordinary power of the energy of money to enable us to add to the beauty of the world and to create goodness for each other, and to restore and protect the natural systems, the natural world that we not only live in, but we are actually a part of. It's sometimes easy to forget that we're actually part of nature. That all becomes possible if you can hold this kind of understanding and relationship with money in your heart and in your being. It sits at the heart of every decision you make. And I won't say that suddenly magically you experience, life is somehow just like, everything you touch turns to gold, because we live in the world that we live in, which is not living this kind of message. And so each one of us has our own journey of transition through our personal experience with money and our business experience, whatever our contribution is in whatever form. And we have to learn, like, the more you bring love into something, the easier it is to find the parts of yourself that are really not very loving. And there are plenty of them, at least in my experience. But that's where the richness comes in. I think the biggest thing, there's a line in what I played you, which says that you will win not only me, which is money, but life also. When I wrote that, I didn't know what it meant, but the richness of what emerges when you start to relate with money and abundance and generosity and all in alignment with nature. So when you relate with money connected with love, when you have a loving relationship with money, then what emerges from that is a richness in your life. Sometimes there's lots of money, sometimes there's not a lot of money, sometimes there's a struggle there because you're in a transition, something's changing and there are waves still. But the richness that emerges through that is the richness that we crave, that we long for as human beings. It's the expression of an abundant life, which is rich in so many different dimensions and growing dimensions. There are more dimensions of life available to us now than there were when I was a child growing up. And so through our pursuit of riches, ironically, we discover this richness of life, which speaks to us and connects us with other people and enables us to make wise, responsible decisions in the way that we design and lead businesses. And to me, that creates a future not only of money, but a future for humanity that my whole being kind of moves towards. It says, yes, I want to go that way. And that's what holds me together in some of these very challenging times where I really don't know the answers any better than anyone else. My clients come and they have questions and we have to sit together with the questions because we can't come out with the ready answers. But what holds me together is that sense that there's a direction that is absolutely clear, even when all the circumstances of where we are at the moment, on the road where we are at the moment, are very confused and confusing. And I feel that anyone who resonates with that recording, you have that direction clearly established in your being. And if we keep walking that way, we will make better and better decisions, and we will create a more and more healthy, alive, vital relationship with money. And that will feed into our economy because we will make bigger and better businesses that actually influence that. We become the influencers rather than the reactors to what's going on in the wider economic world. Forrest, that is what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for the beautiful video. And I just would love to bring in, I've just finished reading your book. I'd love to bring in a little bit of what I was hearing in the breakout rooms and just tie it into some themes in your book, and maybe you can share a little bit more on that. So one of the questions that arose in our breakout room was like, how do you feel about work-life balance, in the new emerging economy? And what came up for some of us in talking about what seems to be coming online in this new way of being that we're talking about is like a real letting go of hustling and grinding and working hard and suffering to make money, and that actually joy and our enjoyment and our spontaneous genius and our playfulness are the fuel source, the nourishment that gives life to the new way of being that sources the new emerging economies, and how money, it seems reading your book that the consciousness of money wants to support enjoyment and what we enjoy doing, and us bringing forth our our passions into the world in service of the larger whole. So I wonder if you might speak any more on any of that.
Yes, and 2022, it feels like that energy is kind of charging into the world in the most extraordinary way. We've just come out of, in the Chinese system, we've come out of an ox year, which perhaps was the kind of pinnacle of the hard work ethic, the hard work approach to business. I think a lot of people worked really, really hard last year. Like what I feel is, yes, the only thing that holds us back is our lack of courage to do that. Like, how many people do you know, Forrest, who just long to be able to experience more enjoyment, do what they love to do, all of those kinds of things? So sometimes there are practical things that hold us back, in the sense of, I really don't know how to make money doing what I love to do. And I think that that's a genuine concern. I've been so many years in the world of kind of essentially consciousness education, energy healing, energy, everything about energy and consciousness. And I don't know many people who are really thriving in that world at a financial level, because the model itself doesn't work for that kind of business. It doesn't work for a business that in its essence is based in your heart, to be out there hustling against the loudest hustlers in the world. It's like, that's not, we're not in, somehow we're not in the right space for that. So we all have to work. I've had to put in so much kind of, it's not effort, like commitment, I think might be the right word, to finding a way to speak to people through all of that noise. And it feels like, yeah, it was a worthy effort. I'm glad I did it. And it's not easy. So yes, I think there's an enormous hunger. The simple elements of it, like enjoyment, they make a difference immediately. The more you can enjoy whatever you're doing, wherever you are, however old school or not really what you want it is, the more you can enjoy it, the better everything goes, and the better money flows, without question. I've seen that time and time again. And that's why I think the book has such simple messages: relaxation, enjoyment, love. These are things we can do anywhere. But I'm seeing, before I think I believed that we could change everything from ourselves inside, I'm now seeing that once you change yourself a certain amount, you actually have to get involved in changing the systems, because the systems create the environment in which we're able to respond and act differently. Yes, I feel very, very committed to systems, especially business systems that support people who do good, who actually benefit humanity, benefit nature, benefit life. I think that that's the number one priority for us now.
Yeah, and so what I mean, there's so much beautiful wisdom in what you're sharing, but a couple of things that are really sticking out to me is becoming aware, waking up to not only that we're a part, that we're a part of nature, that we are nature, and seeing ourselves and our relationship with money as part of the larger whole of our relationships with all human beings and all of life, really, and the planet itself, and including that in our financial decision making, our financial meaning making, our relationship with money. Yeah. And also, I'm really hearing this. I mean, you talk about getting together with clients or businesses and sitting in questions together. You're not coming in as the expert with all the answers pre-tailored, ready to go of this is what. There's
probably there are some things that I do actually know how to solve, and then I probably am absolutely the expert. I do actually know, I've done it hundreds of times and they haven't. But absolutely, there are areas where we are like, we just have to explore together.
Yeah, and that it seems to me that in what I'm learning is we surrender you talk about the need to be able to be in not knowing, to have the courage to be in not knowing, surrender the idea that we're going to figure this out, that the linguistic mind is going to understand and comprehend everything that's going on. And in that, in my experience, we open up to other innate faculties and like our intuition, for example, or resonance and dissonance, our felt sense of how a decision or a deal or a price in an exchange might feel, land in our nervous system or in our fascial system or in our consciousness. And so we're letting go of the linguistic mind as the dominating kind of top of the hierarchy decision-making system, and opening up to other meaning-making faculties that can explore or inform how we're moving forward in this emerging relationship with money and in the emerging economy.
Yeah, and what's important is people often feel then, like if they lose that dominance of the mind, they feel that they're going to lose control. The interesting thing is, to me, it elevates the correct use of the mind, if you like. The mind is a very brilliant articulator of things. There are beautiful things we can do with the mind when we learn how to express, because it enables us to share a common language, for example, and sit here and communicate with each other. Now, the energy is the important thing that's happening here. But if I sat here silently and Forrest sat here silent and we just smiled all the way through, we're not at that level telepathically yet where we would receive the information. So the way we use our minds to articulate and shape and form energy is remarkable. And my experience is that when you bring out all the other senses that we have access to, well, no, I won't say all, there are so many we don't know yet, but as you start to expand your access to the subtle senses that that feed our intuition and many other ways of knowing things, it puts the mind in the right place so it can relax and perform really well. It doesn't diminish the mind. It diminishes the power of the mind, but it doesn't diminish the capacity and the usefulness of it. It just puts it in the right place. And the whole system relaxes then, because really the way we use our minds at the moment is like trying to use your eyes to smell something. It's like the wrong faculty for the job. When we put the right faculties in the right job, then each one can do its own thing. You smell with your nose, you see with your eyes. So it's like just get things the right way around, and it gets a lot easier then.
Yeah. I'm appreciating the laughter, because for me, in this exploration, some of the most important characteristics that we might bring into exploring a new relationship with money are some laughter, some playfulness, a sense of lightheartedness. It's not, to me, there's the quickest way to fall back up into my head and get in the way of all that's emerging in terms of the new economy is to get really, really serious about what's going on. So
that's right. And there are plenty of opportunities for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I had one thing that I'd love to bring in is, I had a collective call this morning, and people were bringing up the harm that's been caused with money and trauma around our financial system. And now I'm getting super serious, so maybe we can laugh for a second. But I guess my question is, to bring in a little bit more lightheartedness, is for me, I get a big sense of expansiveness, and I get a feeling of possibility, and I get a feeling of opening up more fully into our true nature as I engage in relationship with money. And then I'm also simultaneously holding just what's the situation that some folks are up against on planet Earth right now. And I wonder if you have anything you might say about that.
One thing, there are a couple of things that seem really important. The first is that it's time that we stopped blaming money for causing those things. It is how we behave around money that causes the abuse of money and everything that comes from that. And the reason we behave around money like that, as far as I can see, is because we don't actually understand what it is. When you start to see money in the way that it revealed itself through my book, it would be really hard to make the kinds of decisions that tyrannize other people or that harm people, sometimes deliberately for the sake of greed or accumulation or whatever other motivations there are. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know it in your heart, you can't just completely forget that. You can, in a moment of sheer panic, when fear comes up, we can all do things that we would never stand for in our deeper values, when we're afraid, when we feel threatened, those kinds of things. So I think that's really important to realize that it's not money that causes it, it's human beings that cause things. And then so that comes back to us with all the situations that are going on. We can't solve all of them, even if we'd like to. You'd like to be able to help everybody whose house has just been flooded, or help every Ukrainian person who is threatened by the current situation. And we can't do a lot of that. But I think what we can do is live by, and not only live by, but also stand for what we really value. So the Ukrainian situation brings up all our desire for peace. And frankly, most of us don't find it that easy to live peace in our own lives. That alone is quite a challenging thing. We then expect large countries where there's a lot of power and a lot of resources involved to be peaceful in a way that we're not very good at. And it begins to become clear that we must, first of all, create peace in our own lives. And that means even in the really difficult times where there's nothing, it doesn't feel remotely peaceful, because that's what we're looking at, is countries that are they really feel right in their situation. I fight with my husband because I feel right that I'm right, and he feels that he's right. It's fundamentally the same thing. But then it's not only that, but it's then bringing our ability to create peace, or our ability to create abundance, this abundant relationship with money, into the wider world. That's through our work, or through our projects, or through whatever contribution we can make in our community, whatever your community is. Mine's a business community, someone else's might be their local community. But when we start to share beyond our own personal experience, make it the way that we do things, that's very powerful. If a lot of people are doing that, countries won't be able to respond at a national level in the way that they currently are. I think we can see the end game is happening. We can see, we saw in Canada, a lot of people standing for love there. There was a very strong sense to me of love, whatever the fringe stories are, strong sense of love, whether it was love for a country, which feels to me old-fashioned and patriotic, but there's nothing wrong with that, or love for humanity, or love for some values, but there was love definitely threaded through that entire experience. And I think we'll see this also in the current conflict situation emerging, that love wins, and that's what people want.
Thank you, Sarah. Beautifully said. I'm hoping that I'm hoping everyone can find your book, Love Money, Money Loves You.
It's not very hard to find.
Sorry?
It's not very hard to find.
No, it's not hard to find. I hope you find it in your, I listened to it on Audible, and I haven't read it, so I'm coming from only doing one thing, but I'd really recommend that, because it's like a straight through transmission, listening to your voice, Sarah, through the whole way. And I just felt like the consciousness of money was speaking to me directly the entire time I was listening, and really enjoyed that. So my invitation would be to everyone to get a copy through Audible if you've got access to it. And Sarah, I'm hoping you can help me welcome Tim on stage, because I know you all have been partners in love too. And maybe as we are welcoming Tim on stage, I don't know if you all are up for it, but I feel like, I know there's been a lot of intellectual exploration. Maybe we could do a little body movement for a moment, and just kind of invite everybody, if you just want to move the body and breathe a little bit, do a little tapping or something. And I know if I spend too much time in my head, I get a little kooky. So it might be helpful to just bring some awareness to the body. So welcome, Tim. It's good to have you here. It's good to be with you. I'm so excited to have you and Sarah here as part of Love Too, as embodied examples of the emerging economy. From what I know about Love Too, when Sarah told me about it on our recording, I was speechless. I couldn't respond to how beautiful what she introduced to me about the work you all are up to is. So I'm wide open to that happening again in terms of what you're coming in to share with us. But yeah, Sarah, please help invite Tim in any way that feels resonant. And Tim, my invitation would just be, tell us about Love Too and what's lighting you up in your work right now.
Maybe the way to invite Tim in is, maybe Tim, we can do like a little joint introduction to the origin story of Love Too, where it came from. I've already really expressed from my side, a big part of where it came from was my book. And then I met Tim we were supposed to be in this kind of marketing mastermind group. And we had to do these little videos to introduce ourselves. And Tim made a video. And Tim, you can continue the story, and maybe I'll drop back in a little while to help you.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Forrest, for the warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Yeah, so I came into the mastermind group as an agricultural scientist. I talk about a fish out of water with a lot of internet marketing people who were talking about funnel pages and things. I had no idea what they were talking about, but I knew I was interested. I knew I had to reach more people and talk to people. So we made these short videos about what we wanted to achieve by being in this mastermind group. And for me, I'd been working on climate and climate change issues for basically my whole career. I patented a system of trading a carbon credit on a stock exchange in 1999. So I've been around this and thinking about this for a long time. And so my video was about, oh my God, this is awful. This is, the third hottest year in a row, and we're all going to hell, and it's going to be hot, and there's going to be storms, and everything's bad. And we've got to do something about this right now, with a real sense of urgency and concern and panic.
And money.
And right, money was an important part of it, because I recognized that we really needed to get capital markets to invest, but it was sort of like, how do you get someone to invest in a surgery, when not everyone's convinced the surgery is needed. So it was a very, it's a negative approach to it. And my take on this, Sarah and I have slightly different versions of this origin story, but my take on it was that Sarah, a number of people responded saying, yeah, great, that's interesting. Sarah first responded saying, that's interesting, let me think about it. And a couple of days later came back and said in shorthand, it's not going to work.
I said, I love what you're about.
Right, I love it.
But it's not going to work the way you're talking about it.
Yeah, there something like that. Because it doesn't follow the principles of healing. It's not about how nature works. It's not about how nature heals itself. And, after 30 years of doing startups and having been a venture capitalist too, Sushant, and having been in the financial markets, and yet being an agricultural scientist and organics and nature, I'm kicked the sand and mumbled walking on the beach saying, what would she know? She's got no idea. How dare she? And about a week later, I came back to Sarah and said, okay, you were right. I've got it. It's called Love To. And from there, it was born. We had a fantastic lunch with Sarah and Sarah's partner, Nico. And we began talking. And initially, we wanted to really make a difference to the way the world was fed, so that there wouldn't be poverty and starvation. The initial goal was to feed 1 billion people every day and still have an ecologically positive impact and a socially positive impact. And we've advanced a long way from there. Really what we're looking at now is recognizing that the value that people create when they're doing things that are good for the community, that are good for the environment, that are good for their families and for themselves. They do things that benefit all of us, and we recognize that as a benefit. Say, great, little pat on the back, well done, but we don't actually value that. We don't say, wow, you're creating assets that are fundamental, they're necessary for life, and we're not even appreciating that. There's no appreciation of that effort, that investment that they're making. So
Can I give an example, Tim? Can I give an example of that? So for example, if a farmer farms conventionally, they put chemicals on the land and all of that, we know about that. If a farmer farms regeneratively, they make completely different decisions. They invest usually their own money and their own time and things. And there's no recognition of the value that they create by doing that, as compared with the destruction that is created by farming with a lot of chemicals. It's simply like, well, this one's doing it this way, this one's doing it that way. We haven't in our society a system for doing anything other than saying, oh, that one's better than that one.
But it's interesting because we do talk in the financial world about, valuing assets. And Love To is really focused on assets that are necessary for life. Is there any more important asset? What more important thing can you invest in than clean water, fresh air, soil that's living so we can keep growing food, vegetation, trees, biodiversity, so we've got a mix of things and we can all live in an integrated ecosystem kind of way. It's so fundamental. Right. It's so fundamental. And we tend to do the opposite with our current economic system, which we think is entrained and ingrained and impossible to change. But actually, it's only been around for 200 or 300 years. It's not that set in stone. But we say, well, we look at a tree and say, well, it's valuable when we chop it down and turn it into lumber. We can build something with it then, and we can sell it, so then it's worth something. We don't value it while it's standing and holding soil together and providing shade and habitat and keeping water where it's supposed to be and letting plants grow under it, keeping life possible. We don't value it. We know it's beneficial, but we don't value it. So the change is to put, well, there's the tricky bit. So we recognized during this process that life is actually indivisible. We can't value that one tree separate from all the others, in just the same way as we can't value one person in exception to all the others. We've got to look at and recognize, we've got to change the system so that we understand that we're all part of an ecosystem. We're all in the ecosystem. What we do contributes to it. We're not puppeteers standing outside it. We are not watching it like a theme park or like a sideshow. We are actually part of this living, breathing thing that's called life. We're in it. And what we do makes it either better or worse or the same. If we do nothing, well, you can't really do nothing, can you? So we have an opportunity here. We have a choice to contribute. And so if we contribute in a way that's positive and that conserves or improves, regenerates assets that are necessary for life, there's a recognition in Love To systems that is extremely valuable. We had a bit of a discussion with a few accountants and different people saying, well, are they intangibles? Are we valuing intangibles? And the reality is, if you're thirsty and you need a clean glass of water, that's very tangible. That glass of water is very tangible to you. It's not that it's some model of a glass of water or an idea of a glass of water. It's actually a glass of water that you need. So it's very tangible. So these are things that are real. We just haven't valued them before. So Love To's brilliance now is that we've been inspired to create these remarkable systems that value the investment that people have made to look after things that are necessary for life. And we're not trying to sell a ton of carbon or a ton of fresh air. We're not taking it away from the nature. We're just recognizing that people do work to look after that. That work, their investment has a value, and we can transform that value into something that institutional investors are happy to pay for. So we can make a financial product. We can sell that financial product in a normal, boring way, like a stock exchange, and use all the tools of regular capital. I think trillions and trillions of dollars that's something like $250 trillion of bonds and stocks transfer in the world every year, 250 trillion. So it's a fairly large marketplace. We can use that market very directly and have that market start to embrace the value of looking after things that people that are kind enough and caring enough and loving enough to look after and to nurture for all of us. That means that they can get paid for it. They can get rewarded for it. And the funny thing is, when they get rewarded for it, they don't want to buy a Ferrari and go live in a villa in Bali. They want to keep on doing the same thing. They look at the money that's coming in and they go, wow, we could do so much more of what we're doing with this. So for people that have been doing these things with great expertise, great skill, and great love for 15, 20 years or more, even for a year or two, what safer pair of hands could investors put capital into to make sure that people are looking after our natural world and improving it? What better place to put it than with people who have already done it out of the goodness of their heart? So, it's very encouraging. The stories that we hear and the people that we deal with are just the most lovely, enlightened, grounded, realistic people who are doing fantastic stuff every day. And I think I was saying in our breakout group, it's really interesting because those regenerative farmers are saying, this is too good to be true. Like, we've done all this stuff, but no one's going to pay us all this money for doing all these things. And the other side of the argument is, well, it's too good to be true that you guys have done all these things for 20 years without ever asking a penny for it. You know, how is that sustainable? So the truth, the balance comes out, the truth comes out, and it's really logical. It's really sensible. People put in a lot of energy. They invest a lot of their time and effort. They produce a product. They're able to sell that product, and that allows them to make more of it, just the same as everything else in commerce. It's just that these are people that are making things that we all need and are all necessary for life. So Love To is a really beautiful mix of really mundane financial stuff that exists everywhere and incredibly enlightened recognition of how love works through people and how people work in their ecosystems and how we all get along. It's amazing. It's quite a fantastic thing.
I just want to play this back to make sure I'm taking away what you all are saying in capturing really what's happening here. So you all have found a group of regenerative farmers who were already farming regeneratively and said, wow, these people out of the kindness of their own hearts are doing the extra effort to practice regenerative farming as opposed to farming practices that harm the environment. So they're taking extra effort for reasons that are not being rewarded financially. They're coming from an ulterior motive, seeing that perhaps we can value that. And then you've grouped together a collective of these regenerative farms into a collective together, and then brought investors to create a financial instrument that's now traded on a stock exchange where people can take an equity position or an investment position, contribute capital into this collective of regenerative farms for people who are helping heal the planet through farming practices while also providing value and food supply to folks. Is that what I'm hearing, the bridge that you all have built?
You're describing us in about 6 months. We're not quite listed on the stock exchange yet, but we're getting very close to that. Beautiful. We've evaluated this first parcel of assets from our pilot group of farmers who on average have been regenerating land for 18 years. So some of them 5 or 10, some of them 35 or 40, you know, some of them were the first organic farmers in the early 1980s. So this is really lifetime commitment by them. And some of them are in their 70s, you know, they've been doing it their whole life. Yes, our first parcel of assets amounts to just shy of $1 billion Aussie dollars, 950 million. It represents 300,000 hectares of land today, but we talk in terms of a hectare year. So the person managing a hectare for a year, and if you multiply the hectares by the years, it's just short of 5 million hectare years. So it's a pretty big amount of effort. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of change. And a lot of it is in very sensitive places, you know, close to very sensitive ecological environments like the Great Barrier Reef or the Murray-Darling Basin. We started here in Australia, but we're looking at 700 UNESCO certified biosphere regions that need conservation and protection and that are under pressure. You know, these are opportunities all over the world. We are starting with people who have actually done the work, and we expect that they will continue to do more of the same, but we also recognize that with their experience, they've created a fantastic asset. The data and the know-how that they have generated by being able to do these things efficiently and profitably and improve food security. You know, they're improving the food that they're producing. They're improving not only the quality and the animal welfare, but also the quantity of food they're producing in these regenerative farming systems. Some by they're 5 times their farming production off their land, and yet they're more regenerative and revegetating land on a huge scale. So this is stuff farming communities need to know because it's really safe, it's really profitable, and it's good in every way. So the knowledge that can be passed on there is also significant. And then we can look at people who have been doing it for 1 year or who have just started, and we can give them help, reduce their risk, and get more people involved. You know, so it does start with the people that have been doing it a long time, but they begin to teach and show, even just by sharing their data, they begin to show others how to do it. But it's not only developed nations. You know, we're working with farmers in Queensland, but one of our projects, unfortunately, sort of on the back burner at the moment because it's in Tigray in Ethiopia, and there's war going on there at the moment since November 2020. But people in Tigray over 30 years, Tigray was the place where Bono and we were singing about feed the world and let's save them and let's make sure everything's okay back in the 80s. Well, they actually got about doing it. And just short of 1 million families, 996,000 families have each contributed 40 work days per year to regenerate their environment. And they've done that over now 4.5 million hectares. So now all of those places have food security. They don't have anywhere near the amount of drought. They're not so prone to famine and disease. They've got running water. They can get rid of wastewater. The towns and villages are thriving. People are healthier and happier. And people are living on the land in harmony with nature, from basically a very degraded, desertified place to something that's an oasis of green now. You know, people in Ethiopia, when they were starting this, were earning 30 US cents a day. You know, $100 a year was their total income. And they've created this asset that's worth tens of billions of dollars that they haven't ever realized that has a value, but it certainly does. So there's, you know, there are examples all over the world where this has been happening, and it's just a matter of recognizing the work that's been done and packaging it up in a way that that helps, that facilitates and helps and supports people doing good things, people that are doing what they love to do. You know, loving to do it is the key to it. It comes from the heart first. So yeah.
I want to say, Forrest, that your summary was very beautifully put together. Thank you. Yes. You really described very succinctly what it is that Love To does.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you all for doing it. I'm happy to summarize.
What else are we doing?
The people who sum it up are really important to us.
You need me to summarize something like that anytime, just let me know.
I might be in touch with you.
Yeah, okay. Oh, beautiful. Okay, well, thank you both. Is there anything else either of you would like to share? I'm sensing a little bit of a transition. I would love to open up for anything else you want to bring into the space.
Well, maybe there are some questions. Yeah. Tim, is there something that you want to?
I was just going to say, the capacity for everyone to do this is there. You know, no one needs to be excluded from this process of starting to look around. I mean, I sort of, the analogy I give is it's like those 3D illusion puzzles where you're looking for a pattern, and then when you see the pattern in the illusion puzzle, you can't unsee it. This is very like the experience of Love To. When you start to recognize the things you do that are valuable for yourself, your family, the community. I mean, you know, we're working with people that are doing good things for keeping their community safe by bushfire or rescue type, volunteer rescue type things, all the way down to people participating in sports and sporting events to keep their own health up so they don't need expensive pharmaceutical surgical solutions. Everyone can recognize the value that they generate in their own life and focus on generating more of it. And
can I give a little context?
Yeah, please
here?
Do. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way we're starting off is with a mutual company. Tim mentioned that we work with mutual companies, which means that they can't be taken over by shareholders, basically, that they're owned by their members. So the people who produce all this goodness, they're the members of the mutual. The first mutual is called Love To Be Bright Green, which is about regenerative farming in Western developed nation type of contexts. The next one that we're planning that will follow that, we're just about to launch Love To Be Bright Green. That's imminent. We're preparing the final documentation these days. The next one is called Love To Be Active, which recognizes the benefit that people create for health and well-being, not only for themselves, but for their communities and even for their countries and their health systems by being physically active, exercising regularly. We are planning a little further down the line, but very close to my heart, Love to Be Well, which really is a way that people do so many things these days to take care of their health and well-being. And the people who support them are very unrecognized. Anyone here who's a health and well-being coach of any kind will know that there's a huge amount of work done to support people's health and well-being, which is, it's hard work in a way, and it's not much valued. So Love to Be Well will enable us to have a system whereby the people who contribute by looking after their health and well-being benefit, the people who help them do it, their coaches and gyms and all their yoga studios, all of those, they get rewarded in the process. So it's a focus on genuine health and well-being rather than sickness and disease and the stuff that we tend to be used to. We don't have nice names yet for, Tim's had a lot of discussion with people who are involved in things like, how do we prevent catastrophic bushfires in Australia? Or how do we just prevent catastrophic flooding in Indonesia, these kinds of things. So it applies really well to those kinds of situations. And then so we see it as what we call a meta model, which is a kind of model that can be applied in many different situations. And we foresee the time will come when other people will come to us saying, well, why can't we use this Love to model for this scenario here? And they start to build mutuals using our fundamental, kind of like the model at the heart is what makes it work, the engine, so to speak, so that it could then grow beyond the scope of what we're likely to be able to do ourselves. It just gives you a bit of a flavor through the names, really. Love to Be Active. You can, like, we play a lot with this, like love to create, love to eat good food. You can get creative with the names, but they are really the initiation of something that people love to do and is beneficial.
Yeah, we've got people talking to us now who are looking to change the education system, you know, to make kids enjoy their learning even more than they currently might. We've also got people talking to us about the value of, you know, having people with homes, having them not out on the street, but having the safety and the comfort of shelter, you know. So there are some very interesting and very fundamental things, and there's going to be way too many for us to do on our own. So the idea of the meta model is quite relevant in that it can be quite replicable, and people can pick up the system that we've basically generated and apply it with a lot of help from us to their own passions and interests. So yeah, so just something to think about is that this isn't a story about what other people are doing. It's a story about what we all are doing and can do. All of us on this call can be involved in some way in this. And many of you are.
Yeah.
I see we've, I know we want to go to Jeff, and we've also got a raised hand from Fionn. So I'm just going to bring him up and invite Fionn to share your question. Hey, Fionn, good to see you. Good to be with you. And
beautiful, beautiful conversation. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. And wow, I'm blown away by what Sarah and Tim are working on. This is, well, it expands so many boundaries in my mind that were previously limitations. And particularly, I love how you're using the old money systems to do something like this. I would often be talking about, oh yeah, let's get into like crypto and like, how do we find new ways of doing this? It's like, no, use the old ways. And there's people been doing this already for the last 35, 50 years. And here's my son listening in. And so a question that I have, which is maybe worth a longer conversation at some point. So happy to hear that it's become a meta model and that you're utilizing it in different places. But I'm curious about if you're using love as the foundational metric almost for what's important here, which I absolutely love. I'm curious, how do you differentiate between what is a type of project that fits within the meta model and what might not be? And with maybe the caveat of people who may try to somehow abuse the system and say, oh, we're a regenerative place, or we have a love-based model when it's actually not. How do you make those distinctions?
Great question. Sarah, feel free to jump in here. You'll have some things to add, but just speaking, you know, in very practical terms from Love to Be Bright Green's perspective, we cover more than 140 areas of ecological improvement on a particular farm. So it's not a sequestering carbon, are you having a good time? You know, we do satellite spectral analysis. We can get images from satellites as often as every day if we want them. But on an annual basis, we can measure change in primary and secondary forests, and we can find out very early on if something is changing. But we also look at people's engagement and their involvement in spreading knowledge and data, mentoring people, being involved in community organisations like catchment management authorities or land care groups or other, you know, groups that do practical work or educate others. You know, but you can imagine we look at, we have actually 5 meta sets. So we look at the quantitative measurements on site. We look at food security, water security, clean air, climate abatement and change, soil security, a few other things in Metaset 2. Metaset 3 is about the social impact, and Metaset 4 is about the impact that happens by people's good work outside the fence. So what happens to their region because of their activity. We have a 5th Metaset, which looks at what they intend to do in the future, which helps us to direct investment. But there's no way to fake that. You know, the point is that we've got a system that allows everyone to allocate a score to everything they're doing, and that gives them an overall point score. And then we have a pool of assets that's generated by the producers themselves in terms of their expectation of their return on capital. And we just divide one by the other. So it's not us setting a price and saying you should get $5 a ton or $10 a kilo or anything, you know, or you know, we're not becoming the arbiters of the right prices for individual elements of natural capital improvement. We're letting the producers set their expectation, and then we're allocating that expectation amongst the people who are actually doing the work. And that's very measurable. It's not just a feel-good exercise. We actually do have a very scientifically robust and measurable, repeatable process for determining whether this is real or not. And it doesn't stack up. It really becomes obvious. If you look at those sort of range of metrics, it becomes really obvious whether something's genuinely good or not.
I think in terms of love, I'll just say something very brief about love, because the point about love is that when you view money with love, or you view business with love, you make different decisions about how to design it. So it sits more in the heart of the way that we do things. I'm sure that many of those farmers have gone out in a really bad mood at times and done things they had to do, and there was no love there at all. And Tim and I have had our moments definitely of, you know, strong disagreement and conflict, as well as moments of great synergy and amazing times working together. That's in the nature of being human, I think. But the point is that love unites us in a direction that makes us do better things. And so it's more like the love is an important part. We go back to the very beginning of what Sushant was saying at the beginning. It's that combination of the love with in this case, so you've got love plus the real clear thinking. You've got a kind of feminine and masculine coming together here. You've got the consciousness and you've got the capacity. When you bring those two together, you get this very dynamic solution. When you try to do just one, if we did just the science without the love, we wouldn't come out with something that people would make the kind of comments that they're making here. If we did just the love without the other part, it would all be really whooshy and beautiful and fluffy, and I don't think that anything would ever get done. So it's the combination that's so powerful.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks for the beautiful question, Fionn. I'm sure there's more conversation to be had here, so we'll tee that up for some point in the future. But thank you, and I'm aware that we've got 8 minutes left, so I want to excitingly and enthusiastically welcome Jeff to the stage. Jeff, would love to have you in the spotlight for a few moments. I'm just going to listen here. I hear economy of love coming to you, or coming up for me, and yeah, just really curious what's coming up for you, and how's it been listening and witnessing this conversation?
Well, how about a harvest of love? Are you up for that?
Yeah, I'm in.
All right. So I've been listening, and I've been listening for what has that quality of resonance that is deeply rooted in life itself, that is truly empowered, that is truly aligned, that is truly love and loving. So I'm going to share some words with the awareness that these words are coming from, they're shaped by the mind, but not necessarily coming from the mind. So open your heart to receive. You might want to close your eyes, because this is what I've heard and this is what I've felt. So recognizing that it takes consciousness and capacity together. Money, business, and economy are where consciousness gets real. So what are these capacities for the new way of being? Embodiment, especially the embodiment of love. Coming from the heart, surrendering our collective arrogance and opening to intuition, as well as our many, many subtle senses. It takes courage to be in the unknown and let go of the idea that we already have the answers. It takes listening. And as Krishnamurti said, listening is God. And it has been said that God is love, another capacity. Love in all of its expressions. Presence. Expanding our circle of care and concern, holding all in our awareness, which is an expansion of our identity. And as we become whole and integrated, we bring the mountaintop and the marketplace together. And we find awareness and bliss in everything. And this is joy. We have a loving relationship with money and great capacity to integrate perspectives, worldviews, and the beautiful diversity of differences with the help of noticing resonance and dissonance. We bring all of our being into what we are doing. We are healing, we are playful, and we are working light, which is not hustling. It is working wise, not just working smart. It is working in alignment with life, which we are. To paraphrase Jimi Hendrix, when we know, or rather, when how we are with money reflects the love that we are, the world will know peace. Because money is our best friend. Through our pursuit of riches, we discover the richness of life. When we really understand what money is, we do not make the decisions that harm people. Love unites us in a direction that makes us do better things. Love wins. And when we refer to the emerging new economy, we are talking about love-based economy and enterprise. The business of love is the central occupation of humanity. It is regenerative. The evolutionary purpose of business is the distribution of love. Enlightened, love-based enterprises are possible. They already exist, and they will proliferate and become prominent this decade. We have a living example before us in Love Too, and there are so many more. The bottom line is the flourishing of life. Our circle of care and concern includes one another, the ecosystems that we live in, and life itself, because we are nature. We are life, and money is the energy of life, as well as the expression of love. And that is my harvest of love from all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I feel incredibly impacted by the harvest. And I'm just going to invite the group back on stage here. To close us out. Yeah, Jeff, we would love to have a copy of your words. I'm seeing that in the chat. Yeah, for sure. We'll send it out to everyone along with the recording. Hard to say words after that, Jeff, for me. So luckily I've got 4 other faces on screen right now who I can invite in to share words. So thank you all from my heart, truly. Thank you all so much for being here tonight and sharing your wisdom and your gifts and how you're bringing love and embodying love in the world. I just open the floor up to you all. Is there anything you'd like to share in closing?
Thank you, Jeff. That was so beautiful. I'll be immersed in that for some time. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I think I just remembered, Aurobindo talked about without stumbling, the world is perfected, and I think that's what we're doing. Is we're just stumbling, and we're just walking each other home. And I really get that sense of the beauty of this kind of community is that resonance. And so, yeah, and I really loved how Tim and Sarah emphasized that, we can do this. Like this, there are technology, there are systems in place that we can navigate, and it's us. Like it's not some people out there doing this fancy stuff. It's basically us stumbling into perfecting the world in our own way. We're super grateful for all of it.
Thanks, Sushant.
I'd like to say thank you to each of you for being here, because bringing your presence to what we're talking about, both this topic and also to Love To itself, makes an enormous difference. A couple of times we've run courses and we shared some of what we were doing in Love To, and we noticed this real expansion of energy around the business at the time. And we are literally weeks away from putting our first financial products out into the market. So to have this kind of attention and energy and enthusiasm and presence brought to what we're doing at this moment is actually very valuable for us. I can feel, I'm sure you can too, Tim, just the level of support that it brings, having this chance to share it with you all. It's not something we talk about a lot in public. So it's mostly stuff that we work on. we've just been working on. So yeah, it's beautiful to have that energy. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, thanks everyone. The word that comes through time and again with Love To is appreciation. Of course, we have this idea of appreciation in terms of gratitude, but also appreciation in terms of increasing a value of something, because we realize just how important and useful and valuable it is. So deep appreciation, and many, many thanks to all of you for being here and supporting us. Yeah, appreciation is a good thing to take into our days. Thanks again. I really enjoyed that. It was wonderful. And as Sarah said, very inspiring, really heartening. Thank you.
Jeff, is there anything you'd like to share?
Well, Forrest, thank you for convening us and for convening this conversation, which will continue in countless ways, which includes all of us. And I look forward to staying connected. And feel free to reach out to, I think I speak for all of the panelists, feel free to reach out to any of us through Forrest or through our websites. I'm sure we would all love to hear from you and feel your love. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Sarah and Sushant. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and for all of you who stayed for the whole the whole event. What a gift tonight's been. I feel the potential of what we are holding space for here tonight, and can't articulate it, but just so appreciate the field that we've co-weaved together. And I just feel such profound love and appreciation in me right now for each of you here, and yeah, for the economy that's emerging through our interactions here and our exploration. So I will be following up with everyone with a recording and a link to Jeff's words when they're readable, and links to websites and everything. So yeah, before we head out, we'd just love to open up the lines to everyone to say goodbye. If everyone wants to unmute, we'd love to hear all voices on the way out. And just thank you so much. Lots of love to you all. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
So inspiring. Thank you.
Blessings.
Lots of love.